Good afternoon and welcome to a very special edition of P2P Live. As we are getting closer towards the end of the year, we thought we'd mix things up a little bit and take the opportunity to look back at the changes in the employment landscape we have experienced already this year. This week, we will be breaking down the leading employment and job market trends that have been impacting the talent landscapes across the country as we review the top discussions featuring our recruitment experts from throughout the year. So let's jump right into this week's live market update.
Okay, Charles Cameron, this is probably the part of this update that I'm most excited about, to have you here with us today. Of course, CEO of the RCSA and also Vice President of the World Employment Confederation. The jobs report is a massive report that the RCSA put out, really a leading report in the market around employment and jobs. And we've seen some really key trends come out of that. What have you seen in the last one, Charles?
Yeah, hi, Erin. Look, it's quite interesting when we look at the number of jobs that are actually being posted, which is essentially what the jobs report reports on. And of course, in this day and age, that's primary digital posting of jobs. It's quite interesting in the sense that we're seeing a continued decline. But again, one of the things we need to understand, of course, is that this is coming off a period within the Australian economy which was certainly 18 months ago really, really high. So we're seeing a continued normalisation. And when I say normalisation, it's interesting because if we actually look at the index, we're now at a point where we're quite similar to where we were just pre-COVID. Okay, so you might argue, well, we'd like to be, have grown and be more buoyant than that. But of course, we know that GDP has sort of come off and we're all feeling like the economy is coming off. But as you've just reported, we're still seeing jobs growth occur. Yes. It's just a question of where is it coming off. So the other thing that's interesting is when we look at the index, it's actually quite similar to around December 2021. So again, probably just prior to that big spike that occurred. So it's not all bad news, but it is continuing to decline. And we're especially seeing that ongoing decline occurring in the ICT sector. We're seeing it more and more, I guess, severe in professional segments and also in executive and management. And the other thing as well is we're seeing a continued decline in trades as well. So it's quite an interesting period, but it's important not to, get too concerned at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually spoke to ABC about that yesterday, Charles. They asked the question, are you expecting big redundancies? And no one has a crystal ball, but typically in these sort of economic cycles, we see employers tend to go relatively early with that type of activity. And this has been going on for a while. So for us, we would be surprised if we saw, very big rounds of redundancies at this point. However, there is that expectation of a slow increase perhaps in the unemployment rate, and that's certainly sort of coming through in your data. But you're right, we don't need to hit the panic button. There's definitely good news in there. I saw how I think it was accommodation and food services came back a bit, which was lovely to see.
Increased. It's the one sector, Erin, that we actually saw an increase in the number of job postings, which I must say surprised me given the fact that, but again, maybe more people are actually choosing to actually go and enjoy themselves within Australia rather than going overseas.
Yeah, it was very pleasing to see. And on the flip side, we saw those sort of impacts in mining, that sector. We've seen the impact, as you said, within the technology space as well. And I think what's been interesting to look at in your data in the jobs report is in previous slower economic periods like this, we often see those business support level roles hit quite hard first, but actually it's more that professional technical level that is getting hit, along with the exec that often goes. So it's slow though, isn't it? It's not been a big dramatic moves in the job market. It has been a little bit of a slow year in the sense that this data is kind of emerging over time. We've still got that incredibly strong job growth compared to pre-COVID levels, but the entrants coming into the market are outstripping that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, what's also interesting is we're seeing that there has been a bigger drop-off in flexible work. When you compare that to permanent, it might indicate that there is still a desire to lock in talent. At the same time, I think it's also interesting to look at the states. I mean, New South Wales, interestingly, although it had previously had greater drop-off in job ad numbers, it's actually started to stabilise. So Victoria started to decline a little again, and unfortunately when you start looking over to the west, they're starting to decline, South Australia and the territories as well. So Tasmania is probably the one that's been hit hardest, to be quite honest with you. But you know, when we start looking at this, it really is an area where we've got to look at where are we coming from, you know, where was the overhiring actually occurring. And I think we're seeing overhiring occur in ICT and maybe to some professionals. My view, I actually still think there's a number of organisations sitting there and really still feeling what happened when you run out of talent. So I'm really reluctant to let go of my talent, which means that we're actually having to post job ads. Does that mean that we're over any mass redundancies? Look, I don't think we're going to see an overreaction, and I think that's a good thing. But the reality is I still do believe there's a bit more softness to come in the market. But hey, anything can happen when there's an adjustment to interest rates, possibly, of course. Again, each day I don't know. Are they going up? Are they going down? I'm not sure the economic experts know. Interestingly, in New Zealand, they've just announced that they're actually going to be dropping their interest rates. So we really interested to see how they assess what is a very suppressed jobs market over there.
That's in fact good news, Charles, and hopefully we can see some of the pain ease a little bit for our friends over in New Zealand. It has been a lot more challenging in New Zealand than certainly here in Australia. And what you said there around temp and contract and flexible work versus permanent work, I noticed in your data the fall in permanent work was 8.7 versus the shrink of 12.7 on the temp and contract side. So that was very interesting as well. So look, none of us have a crystal ball, do we, Charles? But certainly I think those that are interested in this type of data, they should jump on to the RCSA website and have a good look at the jobs report and really be informed what's happening in the market. Did you have any advice for candidates in this sort of market, Charles?
Look, I think at the moment, many should probably sit tight and be really making sure that we're not making the move unnecessarily. And again, as much as you will need to, I think it's really important to be working with an intermediary, you know, a recruitment agent who really understands the market. If you're going to make the move, make sure that you've got the data, you've got the insights, you're really confident around the culture that occurs there. But understanding the way in which we grow these days and we learn and we really, I guess, improve our capacity to find that next job actually is by moving. So again, just do a lot more planning and make sure you're speaking to somebody like yourself, somebody from people to people who can actually make sure that you know that this is the right move, not just an emotional move.
Yeah, great advice, Charles. Certainly not the time to be making quick decisions on a job move, but rather the right decision for you. Fantastic data and leading in the world of work as always at RCSA. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to jump on to our poll results of the week and wrap up our live today, but really appreciate you joining us, Charles. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin.
Hi, Leanne, and welcome.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me.
So we're here to talk about HR for 2024, and I know you are something of an expert in this space. Wanted to first of all acknowledge, obviously, we've got our most recent market trends report around HR and a focus on what we've seen. What would you say have been the key challenges for HR so far this year?
I think so far this year there's been a number of key challenges, and there's still a fair few that have filtered over from last year into this year, in the sense of we still have skill shortage. It's still a competitive market. I think where there's been a bit of a change in terms of from a candidate's perspective, that flexibility is still on the demand side of things, but it's not quite as high on the level of requirements coming through. So I think from that perspective, we're seeing a bit of a shift come through, which for some organizations are wanting people in the office more, and there's more people that are open to that.
And are you seeing there is, and I see a lot in the media about this word mandate, about people coming back to the office and sort of being marched in. Are you seeing that is happening with organizations?
It depends on the organizations and depending on the structure. I'm finding, especially in the HR space, there are more clients coming through looking to have people in the office more days or 5 days a week. But then it does also come down to whether or not that role is supporting a national function or a local function, or where majority of their employees are based. So there is still flexibility in the market, but where potentially last year we were seeing 2 to 3 days work from home, 2 to 3 days in the office, we're probably seeing more 1 to 2 days from home if it is being offered. But more organizations are looking to get people back in the office a little bit more than what they did last year.
And what would you say has changed? Because obviously we released this report a couple of months ago, and now seeing what's changed so far this year. Is there anything else aside from what you've mentioned that you've seen being a bit of a shift?
I think we've definitely seen a shift from last year, where there were a number of new roles being created in the market, which this year it's a little bit different in the sense of the number of vacancies being advertised has dropped. It has slowed down. And we are seeing that with that drop in vacancies, the roles that are coming through are more your existing critical roles that organizations are looking to replace. Having said that, though, we have seen an increase in applications coming through. When I say applications coming through, the numbers are there. It's not necessarily everyone that's coming through is hitting the mark in terms of what clients are requiring, and they are being more specific this year than what we saw last year. But we are also seeing an increased number of international candidates applying for roles seeking sponsorship, which is not always something that can be offered, especially if it's a short-term temp role or if it's a role that can actually be filled with local talent as well.
And are there particular areas in HR that are being recruited sort of more so than others? And when you say going back to maybe sort of critical roles, what type of roles are you seeing at the moment?
So what I have found in this year alone is when we look at the reasons for people moving on from roles, a fair few are coming through in the sense of there's no training, the development's not there, there's no succession planning, culture's still part of it, but that learning and development and growth is very high on the list for a lot of employees or candidates out in the market. So I have seen an increase in learning and development roles come through with legislation changes that are coming through in terms of psychosocial risks and the right to disconnect and the others that are coming through. There's more work health and safety related roles. And I'm also finding when it comes to even the generalist HR roles, the request or the requirement for ERI or experience and exposure is becoming more valid or more requested when those roles are coming through, to be able to prepare and compensate for that of what they see is going to be in the future.
I think that, that's quite telling around what might be in store for HR in the future and the landscape and what the focus is. And Absolutely. When it comes to, you say, around learning and development and being more of a focus, and it's sort of, I suppose, playing into what we were talking around the wage increases starting to slow, would you say during negotiations and sort of candidates looking to make the move, the focus is maybe shifting away from those big increases that we saw 22 and 23?
I think from a salary growth perspective, it definitely has slowed down. It hit a plateau and it's slowed a little bit. What I am finding from candidates' perspective is not purely salary based. Prior to COVID, a lot of it was around that big salary increase. Don't get me wrong in the sense of salary is not important, because if you look at the economic times, everything's going up. So salaries is still important. But what I am finding for more candidates or more people looking to make the move, it's the package deal. And when I say package, I'm not necessarily talking financial. I'm talking about whether there is flexibility or a blended work week, whether there is succession planning in place, whether there's learning and development. It's all around the culture. So there's a lot of different things that factor into that package, because people go into the office or work more hours than they do necessarily relax during the week. It's about having the right package for them to tick all the boxes, both professionally but personally as well.
Okay, great. Well, I think there's definitely some key insights there. I know that obviously our report has got quite a lot more. What's the best way for someone to look at getting a copy of that or having a further discussion?
Well, we bring out the HR mashup on a quarterly basis, but the details are listed below. So you can jump on to request a copy, or you can head to the People to People website as well to be able to register your interest for that.
Joined today by Girolamo, our accounting and finance consultant. Hi, Girolamo. How are you today?
Well, Mark, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to get the chance to talk to you today and to discuss the topic of how to craft a standout resume. So how to catch the attention of hiring managers and also accurately reflect your skills and experience without distorting the facts. So a couple of my first question to you is, I guess, how can not being honest on your resume harm your job search?
Yeah, of course. So I guess firstly, not being honest in your resume can severely impact your job search, and that's for several reasons. First of all, if there's inaccuracies or exaggerations and they're uncovered during the hiring process, it can lead to immediate disqualification, which can damage your professional reputation and cause you to miss out on opportunities. Secondly, if dishonesty is discovered after you've been hired, it can result in termination and legal issues following that. Creating a lasting stain on your career, which is long-term. Integrity in your CV is crucial to ensuring that you're evaluated based on your true qualifications and to fostering a trustworthy professional reputation.
Yeah, exactly. Honesty is always the best option. And Girolamo, what advice or tips do you have for someone to help adjust or set out their resume the right way?
Yeah, of course. Firstly, I'll probably say focus on your achievements, not just the duties that you do on a day-to-day basis. Rather than listing job duties, highlight specific achievements and contributions. Use metrics such as that you've increased sales by 20% in 6 months, or reduced processing time by 30% through streamlined procedures. This approach provides concrete evidence of your capabilities and demonstrates the impact that you've made in your time there. Next, I would suggest probably using clear, action-oriented language. Start each bullet point with strong action verbs like led, implemented, or developed. This not only makes your resume more dynamic, but also clearly communicates your role in each accomplishment. Avoid vague terms and be precise about your responsibilities and outcomes of your efforts. Next, I'd say be honest, but also be strategic. It is crucial to present your experience accurately, but you can also frame it to highlight your strengths. For example, if you had a role with a wide range of responsibilities, focus on the aspects most relevant to the position you're applying for. Ensure that every claim can be backed up with evidence if questioned during an interview.
Yeah, that's right. And some great tips there, Girolamo. Thank you for sharing those with us. So what's happening on your desk right now, and how can people get in touch with you?
So at the moment, I'm working across a few roles, credit controllers, accounts receivable, payroll. There's always movement in the temp world, and tomorrow could be different to today. If you want to reach out to me, my details are below. My direct line is 8270-9712. Feel free to give me a call.
And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of P2P Live, our market update. We'll be back next week on Friday at 12:30. Hope to see you then.